And we are live. Welcome everybody for another sorry, another of our day's conversations about character on Character Day 2016. And if you want to be involved in the conversation or ask questions or make comments, you can always go to use our hashtag Character Day 2016, and we'll be continuing to have these conversations for a little while longer, every 30 minutes, and with various luminaries in the world of character and different ways we can create our own realities and our own worlds that we're looking to do. So who I'm talking to now is Eduardo Briceño, who is a co-founder and CEO of Mindset Works. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Great to be here. Thanks, Arnie.
I would love for you to talk a little bit. Your organization, which you co-founded with Carol Dweck, is an organization that makes a lot that where you have done a lot of research on this idea of growth mindset. Can you talk a little bit about what that means and why we should be interested?
Sure. So a growth mindset is something that there is a lot of confusion around. When we ask people what a growth mindset is, we often hear that for them it's about high perseverance or grit or having high expectations or believing that we can do anything. And all of those things are related to growth mindset. But a growth mindset, usually we describe as the understanding that we can develop our abilities, that we can get better. Now, there's a broader definition of growth mindset that's more relevant to all of the field of character, and is the understanding that we can develop our qualities, our personal qualities, and abilities are one type of personal qualities. And so when we think about, for example, kindness, as people are kind, some people are kind and other people are not kind, and that's the way it is. That would be a fixed mindset about kindness, versus if we think that we are as kind as we can get and we can't get more kind, that would be a fixed mindset about kindness. And a growth mindset about kindness would be that we can all become more kind or curious or more wise or more intelligent or more capable. And the reason that's important is that when people have that belief, they behave in learning-oriented ways. We seek out challenges. We become interested in getting better, in figuring out, learning more about other people and what they have to teach us. So that improves relationships between people, in improving ourselves and figuring out how we can become better so we can better achieve our goals.
Now, it's interesting because I think, it can be a hard struggle in some ways to see yourself as having a growth mindset for yourself, but I imagine it's another step entirely to see that in other people. I think a lot of the political conversation for this right now is like, these people are voting for them no matter what, these people are voting for them, or these people are on this side of whatever. And so sort of culturally we don't have a sense that others can have a growth mindset. Can you talk a little bit about that and where that comes from and how that may be harmful?
Sure, yeah. So we can have a growth mindset about ourselves and a fixed mindset about others, or vice versa, just like as you said, or about different qualities. Like we might have a growth mindset about our athletic abilities, but a fixed mindset about our creativity. So as you said, right now that there is a lot of kind of polarization in some ways, and seeing other people who are different to us as fixed in some ways that are fixed in different ways than us, and that prevents us from listening and engaging in conversations and figuring out compromises. And that ability to empathize with other people is harder when people are different than us, when they belong to other groups, when they're of different races. And so there has been, like, for example, interesting studies that show that when people have a fixed mindset about empathy, they think that some people are empathetic and other people are not empathetic, then it becomes harder for them to be empathetic in difficult situations. And difficult situations are when somebody's different than us. Like, for example, when somebody has a different political view. And so a growth mindset, the understanding that groups can change and motivations can change and beliefs can change, help us better talk to other people who are different than us, listen to their perspectives, try to try to empathize what life experiences do they have that have led them to believe what they believe right now, and how can we learn from one another so we can better compromise. There have been research on, for example, Israelis and Palestinians, that when they learn that groups can change, they become more willing to listen to one another and to compromise. Or in high schools, with kind of things like bullying or exclusion, students are more willing to speak with one another and resolve conflict when they understand that groups can change and that people can change.
Now, if you're in a conversation with somebody who maybe doesn't believe that there is such a thing as growth mindset and is sort of fixed, is there a way that you can carry yourself or bring yourself to the conversation that will allow them to see themselves in that way, that they can see this differently than they might have coming into the conversation?
Well, I mean, I think that shifting mindsets is a process just like any change process, and I can't impose change on somebody else. The only thing I can do is change myself. And if I want to change anything in the world, the only thing I can do is change myself uh, to im- to influence that in the world, in another person or somebody else. Um, because otherwise, if I don't change, then nothing's going to change. So in conversations with other people and trying to nudge mindsets and influence mindsets, one way that is powerful is to influence culture. So for example, if people are part of a school or a home, having people around them behave in growth-minded ways and role model learning, take on challenges, ask questions they don't know the answers to, solicit feedback. When people behave that way, then it prompts others to do the same thing. And so role modeling what we believe in is a powerful way to do that. In trainings, we also go through research, and the research studies are very powerful because they they show people what the effects of mindset are, and then um, we give like reflection exercises and discussion exercises. Like, for example, when have you had a fixed mindset and what effect did it have on you? Without kind of judging whether fixed mindset is bad or growth mindset is bad, but just observing. We all have part of us that is part of fixed mindset, and we oscillate between the two, and that's a human thing. But just understanding, when do I have a fixed mindset and what effect does it have on you? And then developing that self-awareness that actually gets in the way of achieving our goals, then later helps people understand, oh, this is not working toward me. So let me try to really explore this other idea, this other view.
Now, collectively, if people are, not collectively, but as a sort of future projection or a kind of a course your life can take, what impact can having a growth mindset have on, say you're in a position where you have struggles, difficulties ahead of you, a teenager in a difficult public school. What does a growth mindset, how does that have an effect on where your life could go?
A growth mindset helps people take on challenges and be more resilient. And so, for example, Carol Dweck tells a story that she had a fixed mindset in many ways growing up because of the messages that she had received. And when she got her first physics exam back, she got a C, and she was devastated because she had just been used to getting A's in everything. And so she worked really hard in that class to get an A and prove herself and prove that she was smart. But then she never took physics again. And she, with the first opportunity to disengage, people with a fixed mindset take it because they don't want to be proved that they're not capable. And so a growth mindset frees us to take on challenges, to pursue things that we think are worthwhile and interesting and valuable. And so if we combine that with exploration and having interesting conversations with other people and trying to discover what our passions are and what we think is worthwhile in the world, then those things that are worth doing take on challenge and hard work and setbacks. And a growth mindset frees us to be able to pursue them through those difficult paths and persevere along the way.
How do we acquire a growth mindset? How does somebody who's been, who wants to have a growth mindset? I mean, I imagine that's something that you can just turn on like a light bulb, like, yay, now I've got a growth mindset, everything's fine.
Sure. Well, a couple of ways. First, we can learn about the science of the malleability of qualities and abilities. Some wonderful books on that that I highly recommend are Peak by Anders Ericsson, which was just published. Talent is Overrated by Jeff Colvin is another one. The Talent Code. Um, and these books show a lot of research and studies that about people who built their abilities, who became great. And actually, if you look at any person who became top of their field, they worked really, really hard and effectively for a long way. So that's one way, is really breaking down this idea we have of geniuses just being born that way, which is never the case. Um, Second, we can learn about how learning happens and how to better manage ourselves, and what are the strategies and the habits that we can adopt in order to change ourselves and to build ourselves, so that we not only believe that we can become who we want to become, but we know how to, and we have ideas on what's next steps to take. And third, we can surround ourselves with people who are learners and who have the same intention to develop a growth mindset and develop themselves, so that we can support one another and do this together.
Great. And when you have you take on an area, I'm thinking we've been talking today with a couple of educators, and one of the people that we talked to was saying that one of the things that's really missing for a lot of students is a sense of purpose, as opposed to trying to achieve some kind of external success. And do you feel like having growth mindset, is it important to have a sense of purpose? It's like, why do I need to have a growth mindset? Like, what is the ultimate goal of having a growth mindset? Like, I will be able to succeed, I'll be able to be fulfilled. What in your mind is the sort of like the bottom line?
Well, I think there are two. I can split it into two parts. Just say, so when we think about character, one way to characterize character is in between moral character and or relational character and performance character, and a growth mindset influences both of those. So moral character to me is about having good intentions to do things that are meaningful and of consequence to other people. Um, and a growth mindset actually leads people to have intentions that are pro-social and they're going to help other people. There's research around that. And there's a lot even stronger and longer body of research on the other side, which is that on the performance character side, it's about how can we realize our intentions. And a growth mindset, there's a lot of research that shows that we are more capable to realize our intentions and our goals when we foster a growth mindset in ourselves. So to me, part of it is that's kind of the means to the end, which I think was your question. But part of it also to me is I think learning and becoming is really fun in and of itself. It makes life fuller, it makes it more interesting. And so engaging in that lifelong process of continued iteration and becoming, I think is also an end in itself.
So sort of part of what you're saying is that part of what makes a growth mindset is that end goal sort of disappears, that it's the process that becomes important. You're not saying, if I do all of these things, I have growth mindset, I will be this successful person at the age of 30, and this is what my life will look like.
That's right. Yeah. And then it turns out that the success happens and the high scores and the success. But yes, the way to actually act upon a growth mindset is to kind of put that aside and forget about it and focus on the process in the present moment.
And when you do that, can you talk a little bit about how, for someone who is maybe struggling with something that they feel like they're not very good at, they have to get through school, they have to do math or science or something like that. How do you express that to somebody who's in a situation like that? Like, yes, well, maybe you're not going to be a mathematician when you grow up, but here's why this is valuable to believe that you can do this.
Mm-hmm. Well, first, I mean, I wouldn't say you're not going to be a mathematician to grow, because we don't know, right? So the idea around growth mindset is we don't know what anybody could become until they try. If they want to become a mathematician, we don't know. But what we do know is that they can get better, and that's a growth mindset. Now, the what I would say to somebody who's struggling to around something is that learning and improvement takes time. It always takes time, and it's always a gradual, slow process. And if what we're doing right now is not working, then probably what we need to do is to change the way that we are working and to use different strategies. Maybe what we're trying to learn calculus when we're not ready for calculus yet. Maybe we need to break it down. Maybe we need to sleep more, or maybe we need to like ask for help or try putting a problem into words or trying to solve it in different ways. So if what we're doing is not working, often we say, well, you need to work harder or do more of what you're doing, when really what would be most helpful is let's do something different than if what you're doing is not working.
Now, part of what you're talking about ties into things that people would typically call character strengths, like resilience or persistence. Can you talk a little bit about more? You said this a little bit at the beginning in passing, but maybe just explore a little bit more this relationship between growth mindset and character traits. You sort of, I think from what I understand, the growth mindset is kind of the umbrella under which the character traits can percolate. Can you talk a little bit more about that connection?
Sure, yeah. So a couple connections. First, we can see character qualities as either fixed or malleable, and often we think of character as this rock solid thing that people have, and if that's a fixed mindset about those character qualities, and if they're not conducive to character education or character development. So we need to have a malleable view of those qualities in order to fully engage in changing those qualities. But also there's a lot of research that in some of those qualities, particularly like persistence, when people have a growth mindset, they become a lot more persistent, because when people with a fixed mindset, which means that they're fixed in they believe that they're fixed in their qualities and their abilities, when they encounter a challenge, they take that as evidence that they're incapable, that they don't have enough ability or enough quality to get through. And so they say, this is not for me. I'm not meant for these. So I'm going to go do something else. Versus a growth mindset sees challenge as what makes things worthwhile. And people in a growth mindset understand that anybody who became great at what they did went through a lot of challenge. As part of the learning process is to work on things we don't know yet. And so they persevere. They are drawn to that challenge, and they persevere through setbacks and mistakes.
Do you see, this will be, we're just about out of time, but a last question. Do you see sort of there's a, today's Character Day, there's a lot of percolation and conversation about character traits, about expanding our sense of who we can be. Do you have a kind of sense of what this means globally for us as a species? What kinds of things this can mean confronting all the challenges that we have to confront as a species and a planet?
Well, I think as a species, we continue to evolve, and I believe I'm optimistic. I believe we live at the best time in history, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm very fortunate, and I am thrilled that we can work together to continue to shape our future. And one of the things that we can get better at, and we'll always be able to get better at everything, but one of the things we can get better at is in being more mindful about developing ourselves and developing our children and developing future generations and creating the world we want to live in and we want our children to live in. And I think that's part of what we're working on, and it's a process, and we'll always be able to get better at it. But I think we're being more mindful on it now than we have been. There's a lot of work to be done. There always will be. But I think we're making progress, and that's great.
Great. Thank you so much, Eduardo. And before we go, can you just tell people where, if they're interested in Mindset Works and some of the stuff that we've been talking about today in your own work, where can they find you?
Sure, thanks, Arnie. We are at mindsetworks.com, and we focus on helping schools and homes build growth mindset cultures. So learn about growth mindset and learn about how growth mindset practices in teaching and learning. We have professional development for teachers and curriculum materials to use in the classroom and for school leaders. So check us out at mindsetworks.com, and we have a free newsletter where educators can share their practices on how they're building growth mindsets.
Great. Thank you so much, Eduardo, and thank you everybody for listening in.
All right. Thanks, Arnie. Happy Character Day.
Thanks. You too. Bye.
Bye.